All right, so we got IM Chattanooga. Let's talk about race day. Big thing is transition opens 4:30 to 6:30. So I want you in transition no later than 6 o'clock. That's going to give you 30 minutes to do what you need to do inside of transition. So you need to check your tires. You need to make sure your chain's still on. I like to lift my back tire, get into the gear that I know that I want to start in, get my bottles on my bike, make sure my tires are inflated to um, proper PSI, and I get all the gear and fresh nutrition on my bike that I'm going to race with. Have my bike computer, if I'm using one, staged, ready to go, because you'll be back to your bike in a few hours. 6 o'clock, I think that's going to be, we need at least 30 minutes to do that. So if you have a problem, you can still get it fixed and make the shuttle. So your shuttle, last shuttle ride is at 7 a.m. And then, the start's going to be rolling at 7:30. If you are planning to be on the later end of that, if you're going to get there at 6, expect probably an hour plus wait in the age group start line. Even though it's rolling start, there's going to be a lot of people that are worried about the cutoff times and or heat potential, and they're going to move themselves into a earlier slot than their capability is. That's just normal, and something that we need to expect there for that. When we flip over to the actual course, this swim's going to be pretty straightforward. We have the east behind us, so we should have no sun glare problems. I'm guessing we're probably not going to be wetsuit legal. We don't know. It's probably like that borderline temperature. If it's wetsuit legal, we wear a wetsuit. It's always going to be faster to wear that wetsuit, even for a downriver swim. Ideally, if it is not wetsuit legal, they may give you wetsuit optional. I'll leave that up to the discretion of yourself, but no, if it's wetsuit optional, you are technically taken out of awards. So if you're looking for an age group placing, you are taken out. So if you're somebody that's looking for a Kona slot or any type of award, or somebody that cares about the integrity of the rules, then do not wear a wetsuit if it is wetsuit optional. Ideally, you have your triathlon uniform on, ready to go, and then you'll have a swim skin or speed suit, both the same thing, on over that. Swim's pretty straightforward. We got what they call the yellow buoys, your out buoys, and orange buoys, your in buoys, and then red is going to be our turn buoys. So really, they just mark that halfway point. It's kind of you're going to have the island and the bridges coming into your view. So you'll have that sighting's going to get a little bit cleaner past that halfway mark. But then your buoys on your left will also change color, and they should be orange on your way in, so you know you're in the home stretch there. But should be a nice fast swim, which gives us a nice little cushion for the extra bike mileage that we have. All right, so obviously we have our bike course. If you want to memorize all the turns, you are responsible for them. I don't think anybody actually memorizes these. Ironman is good about marking the course, and you should have plenty of people out ahead of you in a target-rich environment to help lead the way. If for some reason you go off of course, you can re-enter, but you must re-enter from where you left off. So if you went off course 3 miles back, you need to go back to that point to be within the parameters of the rules. So all is not lost. You're not DQ'd unless you don't go back to where you exited the bike course. All right, so we can go back there if for some reason you get thrown off course. We have a loop course here. Total gain around 4,800. So that's a good solid bike ride, but there's really nothing too scary here. I'm going to flip over here and dive into that a little bit more. It's just a good general bike ride, a little bit of everything from sharp, punchy stuff, and a couple, and we'll call them substantial climbs, but nothing scary, nothing that we shouldn't be able to pedal up, or nothing that we should have to dismount on or anything like that. All right, so I'm on Ride with GPS. I think this is the best way to look at that. There are two, 3/4 mile climbs that are over 4%. So that's stout. That's going to have us up on the horns or out of the saddle in our bailout gear. We are going to burn matches in our match book on those two hills. So if I go over here, we're going to get this twice. All right, so around mile, I don't know, let's call that mile 32. We're going to get that climb, and you can see how steep and sharp that is down here on this graph. And that's kind of right at the apex of the course. And then we're going to get that again on that second loop just before mile 80, maybe like mile 78. On the kind of just after our special needs, I think they call it personal needs now. Our personal needs, I think, is around mile 52-ish. We flip back here, we can see personal needs. You know, we got 50 and we have 55. Let's call that 52 for personal needs here. So we're going to get that around that halfway mark. You do have an aid station just before that, around mile 48. So you're going to get a couple different spots where you can hit that pretty quick, and then you get another aid station up here before your loop. We're going to flip back. What I do want to do is I want to talk about some of these other climbs here, because this one, when I highlight this segment, we're going to zoom into that segment, and that's a 3 mile. You know, that's 2.7 miles there, and I'm not perfect, but if I go from mile 52 all the way up to that top, we're going to zoom in there. You know, between 2.5 and 3 miles, we got a 1.2% average, a 3.5 max, but we're gaining 200 feet in 3 miles. So that's going to be a slog. That's going to get our heart rate up, and we need to control it during this segment. The good thing is around this time is where our personal needs is going to be. May break that up some, or we have just come off of some rest, and or we're going to get some rest right after this. So this is going to be a not so fun 10 minutes, 8-10 minutes, something like that, where we're kind of climbing and grinding here. So we're going to be using our gears. We need to be careful that we don't burn too many matches here. Ideally, we keep around, zone 2 plus 5 watts, 5 to 8 watts, something like that. I can definitely see us on some of the steeper sections going into a zone 3, and we use a match here, but we need to be careful that we don't hit, super high zone 4 into zone 5 and light the whole matchbook on fire all at once. All right, we should spend no material time in zone 5 for any of this stuff. I'm gonna back out here. All right, descents. So we're going to get some substantial descent here in this section. All right, this is going to be very fast. It's going to be a time when we can really focus in on nutrition and letting our heart rate drop. It takes a lot of effort to overcome that aerodynamic drag and a lot of power when we're going so fast. So we need to try to avoid that here. And I would like to, if you want to freewheel and spin lightly to clear your legs, that's fine with me. If you're somebody that just likes to tuck and take in some calories, that's fine as well. But this is going to be an area where we really want to make sure that it's going to be fast, so we want to make sure that we're navigating all of our turns safely. I always say, look where you want to go, not where you don't want to go. So if you're making a sharp turn, look through that turn where you want to end up, not the woods that you want to try to avoid. All right, so look through that turn, look through the apex of that turn, get your inside leg high, get the weight on the outside, proper lean on your handlebars, and don't be afraid to scrub speed using your front brake early into those turns on any type of technical descent. These fast descents, I rather you scrub more speed than you need, because you're going to get it back pretty quickly with no power or very little power needed. All right, but we're definitely, this is going to be a fast section here and a great opportunity to take on some fuel. Zoom out of that section. All right, I do think after our climb, we're also going to, this is another mile where we do have some undulations in here, and obviously that looks like a pretty sharp turn right here in this section. It's going to be fast after we make this top of this hill. We should be able to carry power into the first third of that downhill, down until where we get this turn. And I do think we're going to have to get back on the gas a little bit and then into some of these rollers here, but it's going to be net downhill. So this should be an area where we get our heart rate back into a nice stable position after doing this kind of substantial climb. All right, you may need to, if you got hot in this section, we may need to take on some extra fluid as well. All right, besides that, now there is some sharp, punchy stuff. Like if I zoom in on this here, we can see right here. So we have, max is a little 5% part in there. It's 1.6, and we're not over that far of a distance. So this is going to be sharp and punchy. This is going to spike our heart rate, but it's not going to be sustained. If we look at this, it's half a mile, something in there. So we're talking a couple minutes, but we need to be strategic and we need to try to keep our pressure as even as possible. And what we don't want to do is we don't want to use all of our power down in this bottom section here, because then we're gonna have to go to our bailout gear here, and then we're going to be over, and then our heart rate is going to lag and continue to increase. So we want nice, consistent, steady power up over the crest of the hill into the first third of the downhill. And then we can kind of back off and let that heart rate drop and take on aid as needed. All right, but these sharp, punchy things are going to definitely be through this ride and something that you're going to have to contend with. We don't want to put any staircases in our ride. And what I mean by that is we'd like to hold our power as smooth as possible throughout this and keep our average versus a big spike or put a big staircase of power or heart rate spikes in the middle of this. Because our goal is to have our normalized power, and that's the physiological cost of our effort, to be the same as our average power or as close to that as we can, and we call that variability index. All right. After we get through, and then we're going home here, we're nice and flat back into town. There's a couple rollers in there, but nothing scary. So our first section out, we know heart rate's going to be elevated after the swim, and that same section as we go back into town. There are some train tracks in there. They do call it Ironman Choo-Choo for a reason. You're going to go over several sets of train tracks, it's an open race course, may even go behind, you get stuck behind a train. I have heard that happen before. There's nothing, I don't know if it was the 70.3 or the full. Nothing you can do about that, just hydrate, let your heart rate go down. And everybody else is going to be stuck as well behind you. So just be careful when that congestion in the line starts going again. But it's going to be a nice flat section. Be careful and double check your bottles after you go over the train tracks. They usually put some mats there, or they are well marked. You just want to make sure you don't have that bottle ejection there, or that you get a pinch flat. All right, you don't want to hit so hard that you get a pinch flat. We'd like to try to avoid that if all possible. All right. And I'm going to stop this here. That gets us through the swim and the bike, and then we get on to the hardest part of the day, which I think is the run course. Should just be able to flip through here. We'll just keep it rolling. All right. So we're going to come out of transition. We're going to be pretty flat on the riverfront. We start making a climb right around here. Once we come out, it's going to be a pretty steep climb till we come to the top. We're going to come back. In this river walk area, you're going to get some shade relief, as well as the path that you're on. Some of it is on like a trail bridge, wooden bridge. You wouldn't think that it's such a relief, but it actually it's shaded, and it gets you off of the pavement, which is much, much easier on our feet. So you're going to get some impact stress mitigation there through that section, which is definitely welcome after this kind of brutal uphill climb until we go across. And when we go across that bridge, we have some steep, kind of like, you're coming out, you go back down to river level, and then you're coming out of it. We need to be careful when we're going through those sections. If you are somebody that is going to use extended walk breaks. I think we'll use them on demand in the hills because you're going to be forced to. We need to keep our heart rate low enough that we can still process calories. So if our heart rate gets completely out of control, we can't fight through that. One, you're not going to go that much faster jogging. You're not going to be able to run and sprint off it. You've already rode 116 miles and swam almost 2.5 miles. So you're not going to be able to elevate your effort to get anything substantial from a pace standpoint out of it. So we need to keep our heart rate controlled so we can still process calories and we don't shut off our gut and then run into some gastrointestinal distress and we run out of carbohydrates. We'll definitely need to keep our heart rate low enough to be able to still burn fat as fuel and be able to process those exogenous carbohydrates that we're taking in through our through whether it be on course, taking the Coke, the Gatorade, gels, etc. I know they'll probably have pretzels out there. They'll have chicken broth. All of that is fine to go to on course, but we need to make sure that we keep our heart rate low enough that we're able to process that, or it will all get kind of backed up, and then our body will find a way to slow you down, potentially fetal position on the side of the run course. Just let your heart rate drop low enough so that it will process them again. So the big thing is all of our blood is shunted away from the core out to the working skeletal muscles. We need to keep our heart rate low enough that the stomach, gastrointestinal tract still gets a substantial blood flow to be able to process that. All right. There's no, we'll go into the PDF version just so we can show the graph down at the bottom. Coming out of that transition, we're gonna have that climb going up the hill, and then it gets pretty flat for that long section. All right, so from like we'll call that like mile 2 to mile 8. And now we're gonna get there's that big climb out of the bottom. We have these rollers. This is a really tough section. Just look at where this is on the race course. We're right in the, kind of heart in the center of this race here. We have from mile 8 to mile 16. This is going to be one of the toughest sections here. And then we get it when you are completely wiped out and vulnerable at the end from mile 21 to 26. All right. We need to take advantage, and we need to make sure we don't burn too many matches during this first section and do too much here so that we can move efficiently when we get back onto this flat. And then we have to battle. We're at mile 18. Mile 18, knowing that you are coming into this again, is going to be brutal. Mile 21 could be a very angry mile as we start climbing again. And your ability to elevate your heart rate is dependent on how you did with calories. So here we need to be efficient and fueling well so that we can still elevate our heart rate through here. And our heart rate's already going to be elevated due to cardiac drift. So it's going to be a very, very tough section. If you're somebody that's going for that Kona slot, this is going to be your race. How tough you can be through here and how you can keep moving forward and not let we know the paces are going to be slower. We know that's going to be happening, and it's going to be mentally very exhausting and at a place where the demons are going to creep in. It's going to be very easy to quit. So we need to battle through this and keep moving forward. And also what I want to say is while the climbs are brutal and tough and our heart rate's going up, the descents, these downhills will be absolutely atrocious to our quads. We need to make sure that eccentric load here, 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 and here, we need to not completely beat up our quads eccentrically so that we can still run. The eccentric load on the downhills will completely wipe you out. So we can't just freewheel on those. We need to take, I don't want you wasting a downhill. I still want forward lean, but you can't go reckless and out of control. Your pace will go up naturally, but we need to make sure that we keep it under control so we don't completely smash our quads and feel like you beat them up with baseball bats. We need to avoid that so we can run this flat section well and this flat section well. because this is going to be where your average pace is going to be. And what your average pace is here and here, I hope that they are as close to each other as possible. That will show that we did a great job pacing. All right. We only have 1,100 feet, but it's 1,100 feet. It's still pretty substantial, and it comes at really tough points of the race. So this is a very challenging run. It's not easy. We do get a little buffer with the swim being downhill, and the bike unfortunately has a couple extra miles on it, so it doesn't favor us too much at 4,800 feet in a nice rolling bike course. But that's our race. We will go from there, and everybody, good luck.